Welcome to Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem.
I'm Shannon Lawrence.
And I'm MB Partlow.
Quick content warning before we get started. This podcast may contain language and disturbing content, so enter at your own risk.
Hi.
We could have started this while you were yawning a moment ago.
Yes, or while I was laughing after I was
After
yawning.
the yawn, yes.
I think that's a very identifiable sound now to anybody who listens to us. That's MB's hyena laugh.
Oh. There's that laugh.
Yep.
It's not bad to be known for a laugh.
That's true. That's how my children used to find me when they were in youth symphony and stuff. Events at school where they're on stage and we're in the audience afterward. They would just wait because they knew something would make me laugh. And there she is.
There. Hold on. Follow that quick before it dissipates. Oh, we were talking food.
We were.
We went, when we were in Denver, we went to the Yard House, which is my first time. I think it's a big chain or whatever, but I've never been to it.
Oh.
And it's funny because I was like, we'll go here because it's near the Hard Rock, but the Hard Rock will be loud. And of course, the Yard House also plays music loudly, but they have the music videos playing of the song that's on, which I really liked that. I am, after all, the MTV generation.
Yes.
And so I was like, just watching that while we're waiting. I was like, I will wait however long you need me to. I'm just watching music videos. And then the Girls Just Want to Have Fun one came on. Come on. That. Right? So that was nice. Then we went to Bubba Gump Shrimp. So, I normally try and go to small places, but when I'm there with just my daughter, I'm going to go to the place that has the most obvious, this will have burgers for you. And she will eat burgers all day. We went to Bubba Gump Shrimp and it had coconut shrimp and it was really good. But both she and I ended up needing food within a couple hours.
Oh.
So
I tried sushi that had coconut on it.
Yeah. So
it had tuna and whitefish, I want to say, and cucumber and pineapple in the middle. Okay. And then on the outside, there was mango and a little white sauce and a sprinkle of coconut.
It's probably good.
No, I do not like coconut on sushi. However, because for me, it was too sweet. Now, don't get me wrong. I have a giant sweet tooth. But I don't like savory things. I don't like things that I feel should be savory that end up being sweet. Yeah. There's a Thai restaurant in town, and I'm not going to name it, partly because I can't remember the name of it. But to me, a lot of their sauces are just too sweet. Mm-hmm. It's just, I don't like it.
Well, and I don't know if it's like Chinese. I assume maybe similar in that it's all those sauces have been sweetened and for us, right? Yes. That's American Chinese and American this and that. Yes. So
I will say though with the sushi that when I dunked a piece of it gave it a pretty hefty dunking in soy sauce, which I don't normally do with sushi. If it doesn't taste good on its own, I feel like it's not good. Or it's not as good as it could be. But I found that one with a dunk in the soy sauce, that brought it all together. The savory and the sweet. It made a good bite.
I don't sushi. I don't enjoy that. And also, it's something I'm not allowed to do because it could trigger a gene I have for an autoimmune disorder.
That would not be good.
So why eat something I don't enjoy? Yes. That could actually eat my spine alive.
As our friend Patrick calls it, bait.
Yeah. I will occasionally have a tuna salad, which that's very undercooked, but tuna is kind of, it's fine. It's not going to kill me probably.
The mercury will take care of all.
That's right. The mercury and the radioactivity.
Yes.
There will be, it's fine. You have other things to worry about. At this point, everything's going to kill you that you eat, but the sushi is just going to actually not kill me, but make my life more miserable. So I'm not going to do that.
Then I'm
against that. I'm anti that.
I'm anti that too.
Yeah. Nobody likes that.
I don't want you to eat sushi. I will take that bullet for you.
Okay. You eat the sushi.
I will eat your share of sushi. Great.
Yeah. My younger brother really likes sushi. And so there was a period where for his birthday, we were going to go out for sushi. And then I was like, teriyaki chicken for the win. Because they usually had teriyaki chicken.
I was going to say almost every Japanese place has something else.
So it's fine.
It works out.
I'm going to give the kids teriyaki chicken and rice and they're perfectly happy too.
You know, if it's good, I'm pretty happy with teriyaki chicken rice.
Right?
Yeah.
But that can also be oversweet. But
it can. I make my own sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I made it a lot. Like my big specialty dish was like a teriyaki chicken. It was super easy to make. You just put the pick of the chicks when they used to still do that. I don't see that anymore.
No, they don't do that anymore. I miss it.
You know, get the teriyaki sauce, and I would like put like I did it different every time. So sometimes I'd drizzle honey over it too, so it was honey teriyaki, or I'd put some beer in it to change that up. You know, it just depended on what I had and what I was in the mood for. Or like pineapple juice.
Yes, I almost always put pineapple juice in it. And then I cut the sugar or honey or whatever way down.
And then it's just into the oven, and then it cooks, and it's done. So freaking easy, people.
It is.
But then I'd make like mashed potatoes and all this stuff with it. Because I don't like rice. So mashed taters it was.
All right.
I like a tater. We were watching Doctor Strange, the newest one, because it's on...
I just saw it. It's on Disney.
Yeah. So, not my favorite, but Doctor Strange doesn't really... He's not my favorite.
It did not... I found myself during the movie picking up my phone a couple of times and...
When you start doing universal travel and stuff is when I start disconnecting from really anything because they always have to fudge the rules.
Yes.
And I'm always like, that doesn't make any sense what you just did, so...
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was not... Although I still haven't seen the newest Spider-Man movie.
I think I saw that one.
Because I've talked to a lot of people, and I've heard that one's good, and I'm looking forward to it. I was waiting for it to be free. Apparently, it's not going to ever be free, which is okay. I don't mind paying, the $6 to rent it on cable or, one of the systems. But I feel like it is something, A, I need to pay attention to, and B, I need to be in the mood for, because I've heard people say they cried during that movie, and I'm like...
Oh, yeah.
So it's not like every day I sit down and go, I could use a little catharsis. Let me see what'll make me cry.
Yeah.
I don't always want that.
Yeah. Was it we watched Top Gun with the kids, first time seeing that, so that we could go to the theater and see Maverick, which we have not yet. And I was still like, goose. I posted my revelation online, though, that I was like, the first time watching this really as an adult, I think. And I was like, oh my God, Maverick is a little piece of shit. And Iceman, everything Iceman says is so dead on and so true. And he deserved to be first. And I'm like, wow. I should ask my kid, poll them. So who do you think was right? I'm going to ask you again in 30 years.
I bet it won't take that long. 15.
Yeah. I mean, but I feel like I've watched Top Gun. I mean, we owned it on DVD, so we've watched it. But I don't think I paid attention because that was going to be I've watched it a billion times.
Yep.
Because my first little boyfriend, his last name was Mitchell, just like the character.
Okay.
And he was going to grow up and he was going to be a pilot and he was going to be Air Force hotshot. And we watched that over and over because he was also my neighbor.
Did he?
No, in high school, he became very embroiled in drugs and he had to get put into rehab. And then we lost contact with the family at that point. Now, I had moved at 12 years old, so I didn't really... He wrote me a bunch of weird letters after I moved and then nothing more. But then his mom suddenly started contacting my mom, like, for parenting help because he had been her only. And then when she was 40-something, she had a little girl.
Oh.
Yeah. And it wasn't going well, and her son was a druggie and all that. So that's the only reason I even knew that stuff was happening. Oh. Because my friends back there was that period where I wasn't really in contact with them, and now I've never been in contact with him again, even though I'm in contact with the person who was my best friend then. But yeah, it's just, I had to watch it over and over. His dad built model planes. I have a picture of all of us with one of his big model planes, and so we'd fly them. Because he built ones that actually flew. And so we'd go out and he'd fly them around over the trees and stuff like that. It was fun. So see, I have like a whole emotional connection to Top Gun. It's just that I paid attention this time because I don't take, when we're doing family night, we're down there in the dark room, in the theater room. We don't have our laptop and our phone like I do when I watch a movie. And if I put on a familiar movie, it's because I'm doing something. I'm not going to pay attention to anything, but my brain's going to be like, I know what's happening over there.
I haven't watched it I watched it because I lived in Virginia Beach.
Oh, yeah. I thought about that, too.
Near the Naval Air Station. And, oh, my God. When it came out, now don't get me wrong, I don't hate the movie.
Yeah.
But when it came out, I looked at it and I went, I didn't have any interest in seeing it, but everybody saw it and they're, how can you have not seen the movie? Oh my God, we have to get that movie. You have to see this movie. And I'm like, fine.
I love an action flick and I'm very easy to please with them. I will say, I think that mostly because I bitched about it, like, holy shit, like he's such a little asshole. My daughter goes, I can't believe that he got her to date him about Kelly McGillis's character.
I love that.
And I was like, she really was above him. Wasn't she? Like intellectually and grown up wise. And then, of course, she's not in the new one. Jennifer Connelly is. So I looked up their ages because when I watched it this time, I went, Kelly McGillis looks, I think she's older than him. She is. She was older by about like 6 years or something like that. I don't remember for sure. Jennifer Connelly, younger than him. So, of course, I'm assuming they're a romantic thing in the new one, but I haven't seen it. And I was like, so he needed a woman younger than him now.
Of course. Mm-hmm. So, it's funny because when you said you looked up the ages, so every 4th of July for years and years, Lucy and I watch Independence Day.
Right.
Now, my whole family is welcome to. The other two have not expressed any interest in involving themselves with this tradition of ours. And I know there's a lot of controversy going around right now about Will Smith. I don't care about this particular movie. And I know there are parts of this movie that make no fucking sense at all. Don't care. It's an action movie. It's outer space. It's Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum. But for years...
In flight suits.
For years, there were two things I would look up at the beginning of the movie. And now Lucy just tells me.
Yeah, she's like, I know you're on this.
Yeah. So I would look up, who played Judd Hirsch? Is Judd Hirsch old enough to be Jeff Goldblum's father? Yes, just barely.
Okay.
But he's like 18 years older.
Okay.
So technically, yes. And the other thing is how tall Jeff Goldblum and Will Smith are. Because at the end, when they're walking across the field, I'm like, Jeff Goldblum is taller than Will Smith.
Yeah.
And that always surprises me.
Why? Jeff Goldblum's really tall.
He is really tall. but Will Smith is tall.
But he's not as tall. In my head, he's not as tall as what I'm saying.
So anyway, so I've gotten to the point I don't have... But sometimes, it was funny. Sometimes when I'm watching a movie like that, I used to tweet. I've gotten off of Twitter because it made me fucking suicidal. But I used to tweet my favorite lines as they were being said with no context. Mm-hmm. And I do that I've done that with a couple of different things. And one time our friend Cameron reached out to me via message. Are you okay? I think it was not Independence Day. I think it was when I was watching Stan Against Evil.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, I love that show.
Yeah. I might rewatch it. It's because it's popped up on one of the streaming things.
Yes, and the first season is great. The second season is okay.
Yeah.
The third season, just skip it.
I don't think I finished. Yeah. But I'm like, I'll watch the first season again when it was good and it was new and it was, yeah.
And everything he said was a quotable quote. Don't crap an apple.
Okay, wait. I watched when it first came. It's the guy who was the bitchy janitor and...
No, not the janitor, the doctor on Scrubs.
Wait, who's in it?
John McGinnis.
He's not.
He was the doctor.
He is the doctor.
Yeah.
I was thinking of the guy in the middle, too. Why am I confusing? Anyway, so he was the doctor, and he's smarmy in that.
Yes.
And he really makes, like, the smarmy in that is what I loved about Scrubs, too. I should rewatch Scrubs. I'm just going to stop watching new things, because they don't make me happy. I did watch, there's a new Kevin Hart, Woody Harrelson movie on Netflix, I think. And don't ask me for the title, because I don't have it.
It's The Man from Chicago.
Yeah, The Man from Toronto.
It's Man from somewhere.
Yes.
Did you watch it?
Yes. That was amusing.
I want to watch that.
Just watching, because the storyline is that the Man from Toronto, Woody Harrelson is this guy that they bring in to, we'll say, scare/torture the answers out of people.
Okay.
And he never actually has to torture anybody because his reputation precedes him. So here comes goofy Kevin Hart, right? And he ends up in the wrong cabin. And so they think he's the man from Toronto because nobody knows what he looks like unless they've had to deal with him. His own handler doesn't know what he looks like. So he gets taken down there and he's like, oh shit, because there's these 3 big armed guys and he's got to get the answer out of this guy. And the guy's just terrified of him because he knows who he is. And he's going up there and he's like talking big, right? And then he's whispering, I don't know what's going on here. And it's just confusing and scaring the guy more. So he gets the answers out of him, right? Because the guy's like, oh my God, he's going to do something terrible to me.
I am looking forward to watching that.
Yeah. Because then he gets picked up by, I don't know, FBI or something. I'm like, we need you to continue being the man from Toronto. And then the man from Toronto is hunting him.
But I have this I'm trying to get rid of my to be read pile. So I'm reading the book. So sometimes at night, I sit down and read instead of watching TV. I know, how horrible, but...
Well, no, I just can't because that's when I'm doing work and then I put something on the background. I can't read and work.
Oh, well, that is true.
I have been trying to take more where like I take a day and just read or and go sit out back or whatever and just, all right, downtime. I have also taken a second day job with the same company. I'm taking a second contracted position with them.
Why?
Because I really do like the company.
Well, that's good.
And it's something I'm qualified for, and I'm going to make more than double.
So you waited until now to tell me?
Yeah, I couldn't remember if I told you.
Well, just assume that even if you told me, there's a good chance I've forgotten.
Yeah, so there's that. You ready to get started?
Yes.
Do you enjoy going to the grocery store? If so, this message is not for you. But if you're like me and procrastinate going to the store, Instacart is a fantastic option to ensure you no longer have to. Save yourself a trip and go through Instacart, where you can get a delivery through a personal shopper in as little as 1 hour. My experiences have been great so far, with my personal shopper texting me before substituting another product, letting me know when they were on their way to my house, and letting me know it had been delivered, all via text. If you click on our affiliate link in the show notes or on our website, you get free delivery on your first order over $35, and you help out our show at the same time. It's the perfect time to give it a try.
All right, so I'm going first this time. This is a weird one. And so I should subtitle this one, How MB's Mind Works. Because it's going to go in some weird directions. Because the story does. The story, I kept finding these rabbit holes and going down them and going, wait, no, that's not what I'm... So I'm going to talk about the disappearance of Randy Leach. So we're back in Kansas again. What is it with me in Kansas? I can't... Maybe I lived there in another lifetime. I don't know. I do have a child who lives there, but I mean, she's only been there for three years.
I don't know. Again, time has lost all meaning for me, so it's probably like 10.
Let's say that. But I keep being drawn to all these mysterious things that happen there, and plus,
that's because the only thing that happens in Kansas is weird shit because it's so dull. No, just kidding, guys.
But they have like Oktoberfests and the world's largest Czech egg, and they do a lot of fun things with sunflower seeds.
Great. That's important. That's,
Yeah, it is. So Linwood, Kansas is in the northeastern part of the state. It's just outside of Kansas City. 17-year-old Randy Leach was a high school student. He was restoring a 66 Mustang that his parents had got for him. It was supposed to be a graduation present. So on April 15th, 1988, he went to a party in rural Leavenworth County, which is just 5 miles from his family's home. And that's where his story ends. Not where my story ends, but that's where his story ends. His friends remember that he seemed upset at the party because there were it was like a pre-graduation party somebody was throwing. But when people asked him what's wrong, he replied he didn't know. Mm-hmm. It wasn't anything specific. So the timeline, at 10 p.m., Annie Irwin, who was the mother of the kid throwing the party, she said she saw Randy and he seemed to have trouble walking, although a lot of people said he didn't appear to be drunk, and everybody said they didn't see him drinking. She said she didn't see him drink. He didn't have a drink in his hand. He didn't smell of alcohol. He didn't act drunk, but he was having trouble walking. A lot of the kids said nobody saw him drinking. And I can understand the next day, the immediate aftermath, them fudging that detail, them protecting a friend if he had been drinking. But I can't believe they'd keep the lie going for 30 years.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
it's still, nobody saw him leave.
Mm-hmm.
So the mom, you know, the chaperone sees him. Chaperone is not a good word. The mom sees him 10 o'clock. So at 1:30 in the morning, guy named John Burns is taking people home from the party. So he offers to take Randy home. Well, Randy can't go because he can't find his keys. So Burns leaves to take somebody else home while Randy's looking for his keys. Around 2 a.m., Annie saw him waiting to use the bathroom. At 2:30 a.m., when Burns comes back to the party site, both Randy and the car he was driving are gone, and it was his mom's car. At 6 a.m., she sees him at 2 a.m. At 6 a.m., Randy's mom wakes up, realizes she looks out, her car's not there. She realizes he's not home, and she immediately thinks there's something wrong because he's apparently not a kid.
This isn't habitual.
No, he doesn't break curfew. He's not been in trouble. He's not a troublemaker. He's not disturbed. So she realizes at 6 o'clock in the morning that he hasn't been there. They waited the mandated 24-hour waiting period and then officially reported him as missing.
I'm so glad fewer places follow that.
Yes. Although in this case, I don't know if they would have thought he was high.
Right. It makes sense. I mean, he was at a party. Yeah, he hasn't caused problems before. Maybe this is the first time he decided to fuck around and find out, right?
Yes. So right after he disappeared, theories and rumors just were out of control. Death by hanging in a cave, ties to some kind of drug activity, that he had died of a drug overdose, or he was killed after witnessing a drug buy. The KBI, which is the Kansas Bureau of Investigation, for years has considered his disappearance to be the result of foul play. And that's on their website. They had a notice about, because there was a reward for information leading to finding out what happened. There was a man suspected, okay, there are already so many rabbit holes. So there was a man suspected of killing 2 people, putting their bodies into barrels and dumping them into the Missouri River in 1990, not far from Linwood. And according to a retired KBI agent, and that was all I could find, there's like 2 or 3 retired KBI agents who are referenced, but they are never given a name. That man is no longer a suspect. Another retired agent said he believes that Randy drove off a bridge. But there was I would think if he drove off a bridge, there would be some kind of sign.
Because unless it didn't have railing, right?
Right.
There's going to be a chunk of railing missed.
Exactly.
Missing, and you go in and you look. But it is amazing to me, like when they drain old lakes and stuff, how many cars they find in them.
So a KBI spokesperson said the investigation is considered open and still active, and states that every possible lead has been followed, noting that new investigators are periodically assigned to review and investigate the case. Mm-hmm. So here's the sidebar. I tried to figure out what murder case it was that officials thought might be related with the bodies in the barrels. And that led to so many leads for other stories that you'll be hearing about at later dates. One seemed like the timeline would be a fit, that it was a real possibility. But that perpetrator primarily killed women.
All right.
And it wasn't that one just didn't seem to fit. But
it's amazing how much some of them crisscross. Like you read about one case and they're like, it could have been this serial killer or this serial killer.
Yes. Suffice it to say, murderers have been stuffing dead bodies into barrels since, I read an article that I'm not shitting you, said, since at least 1858, when newspapers reported the body of an immigrant woman had been cut up, shoved into a barrel, salted, and shipped to New York by her lover.
Yeah, I'm following the Lake Mead barrels right now, so I might cover that at some point.
Yes. Yeah, that was also referenced.
Okay.
I, however, assume that it's been happening much longer than that, since evidence of barrel usage dates back to 350
Right, they've been
BC.
using barrels forever. What better thing to put a body in?
Right?
The Snowden murders in Australia?
Yep.
Barrels.
Yep.
So, yeah.
wooden barrels, metal barrels,
Yeah.
plastic barrels. The one I did about
I think there were plastic in the Snowden, but
the one I did about the leaking barrel in Las Vegas. So at the time, I don't know how much of this you'll remember. At the time Randy disappeared, rumors of satanic activity were circulating in southern Leavenworth County.
what decade was this?
This was 88.
Satanic panic time.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah.
I'm getting there.
Okay. I was like, that was definitely a part of my youth.
A rumor popped up as quick as a mushroom. I'm like, what the fuck do that? Anyway, rumor popped up that the party site where he had last been seen had been quickly cleaned up, leading to the theory that he was slaughtered there by devil worshippers. Okay, this is a farming community. Farmers do not fuck around. They aren't lazy and they don't leave shit laying around. So I'm like, to me, it's not unusual that they cleaned it up.
Yeah.
It doesn't say they hosed down the
Shit
dirt.
would get out of control so fast on a farm if you just chucked your stuff somewhere and
left
didn't
it-
treat it, like rust and yeah.
Yes, and you don't want to drive your tractor over empty beer bottles.
No.
So this is my other sidebar. The late 1980s was prime time for the Satanic Panic, which was a complete and total shit show. According to our friend Wikipedia, we're coming back to this at a later date. In 1980, the book Michelle Remembers was published by Canadian psychiatrist Lawrence Pasder. Are you aware of the book?
I don't think so.
Okay. And his patient and future wife, Michelle Smith. There's no conflict of interest there at all. They used recovered memory therapy, which has since been discredited.
Strong feelings.
Yes, to make lurid claims about ritualistic satanic abuse involving Smith. And a moral panic swept the U.S. and then the rest of the fucking globe.
Yeah.
With accusations of all kinds of abuse cropping up everywhere. One of the direct quotes that I pulled off of Wikipedia, of the more than 12,000 documented accusations nationwide, investigating police were not able to substantiate any allegations of organized cult abuse.
No. It's a much smaller problem than we were led to believe in the 80s.
Oh, yes. Just like people in vans.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. That was...
That actually might be a bigger one, but, it was... People are going to pull up in a van and offer you candy. Nobody ever did. Or drugs. Nobody ever did.
I had a guy pull up in like a green Honda or something and try and get me into his car. And then I was stalked by a big blue panel van, for almost 2 years.
Damn.
He even switched where he would wait for me it started when I was in 8th grade. And then he figured out where my bus was coming the next year. And then he was there waiting for me when I went to high school.
That's just fucked
So I do believe in the van thing right there.
more than a satanic panic. See, there's more substantiation.
There
for
you
that.
are. Also Hondas. No, I don't know if it was a Honda. I was like 8 or something.
So over the years, friends and family of Randy have followed tips from psychics. They've dug up dozens of what were supposedly hidden graves. They've searched with cadaver dogs at least twice. They've scoured the Kansas River with no result. They've used the ground-penetrating sonar. They've taken boats out. They've hired private investigator. At one point, a man claimed that he'd been kidnapped by Satanists and held in a cave for 2 weeks, where he was threatened and shown a dead body of another victim, presumably Randy. So when the police wouldn't go into the caves looking, Randy's father, Harold, did. There was nothing there. There was no body, no evidence of occupation in the cave. They flew over the area in a small plane looking for any sign of the car. See, that's what I'm thinking. If they did all this searching, they had divers. Mm-hmm. They had a lot of people volunteered to help, and it's still active. They're still looking. They just want to know what happened, obviously. In March of 1989, this is fucking freaky. A local man found a severed foot in a tennis shoe on the banks of the Kansas River. So the police searched but couldn't find any other remains, and the foot was determined to not be Randy's.
Okay.
But how random is that? Of course, there are lists of weird things that happened after he disappeared. I did not include all of them because not all of them are weird, but 4 months after he went missing, his dog Crackers went missing and was never seen again.
Oh.
German Shepherd.
Oh,
So it wasn't like it was a little yappy thing that could have been carried off by a hawk.
I don't know.
So this is fucking cruel. His parents were invited to appear on a Jerry Springer show
Oh, no.
about missing children. So his mom's name is Alberta. So Alberta and Harold are his parents. Before the show, Alberta spoke with a psychic who was also going to appear on the show. And she was asked to send in something that had belonged to him. So she sent a piece from one of Randy's shirts. And after the psychic received it, the psychic told her that Randy was still alive. So they get to the Jerry Springer show. And when the camera started rolling, on the show, the psychic announced he is dead. Yeah, that's a fucking shitty thing to do to grieving parents.
Yeah.
For ratings.
Of course.
For ratings. So Jerry
Who
Springer.
the fuck goes on Jerry Springer, though, and thinks, I'm going to be treated well?
Of course, this wasn't long after. So this was like late 80s, early 90s, I
Okay.
believe.
Had he not become as trashy yet? I know in 96 he was at the epitome of his trash.
Yeah, he may not have been
Okay.
complete shit. But whoever on the show, some director, some producer made this decision to do this to those parents, and I hope they have superating hemorrhoids now.
And gonorrhea.
Okay, no, because that implies they got laid. So Alberta,
I hope they caught it off a toilet seat.
Alberta and her husband, who just died in the last couple of years of a heart attack, were never satisfied with the answers they got about the investigation. Apparently, Harold's biggest fear was that he would die before they had answers, leaving Alberta to shoulder the burden all on her own, which is, in fact, what has happened. She doesn't believe a thorough investigation was done. However, I don't know what mother would.
Yeah.
There was a lot done on the 30th anniversary, and I read some of those articles. When I went back and read the older articles, and I'm not an expert, and I haven't gone here and I haven't interviewed these people in person. The things that were being reported even 20 years ago, the police were still following up leads, and they were actively talking about it. Okay, we've pursued this. It didn't work out. We've pursued this. It didn't work out. Back then, there wasn't a whole lot of what about this, this, and this. And they were saying, no, we're not going to look at that. But at the same time, I understand her frustration. It does sound like they followed up on a lot of leads. She wants them to release the case files, and they have refused. But if it's an active case, they can't release the files.
And that usually, too, means if they didn't have anything, it wouldn't be such a big deal.
Right.
Or, although it might, because then they're tipping their hand, they don't have anything if they find somebody, right? But they can't release certain information, so.
And there were two men, I want to say it was at least 5 years after, there were two men who were taken into custody and charged, but they feel like it was a brand new investigator, like had just become an investigator.
Oh.
And was working with a private investigator, and they feel like she was anxious to make a name for herself and anxious to solve this and jump the gun because they had to release the two men.
Yep.
So right now, Alberta was begging Governor Laura Kelly to discuss the formation of a cold case task force to look into the disappearance, to reinvestigate. Sadly, but not surprisingly, Kelly's political opponents are happy to meet with Alberta Leach and use it as an opportunity to defame the current governor and promise that if elected, they would make investigating Randy's disappearance a priority. I don't know if I believe them.
No, of course
It's a campaign promise.
It's a cold case.
And they're no better than the Jerry Springer show.
Nope.
We're going to make all these promises to get me publicity.
That's the thing that kills me, though, when there are disappearances, the abuse that happens to family, spouses, whoever's left behind.
Yep.
And, they're also always... You don't hear this unless you look into a specific case. There are the crackpots that contact the family. There are the people who contact them and say they have answers and they don't. They're trying to get money out of them. There's just so much that's done to these people. Now we've seen that also happens with parents after school shootings, is they get the same sort of behavior, which is awful. And then they get people contacting them saying it's not real.
And they get contacted by psychics.
Right.
And I have to believe some of these people really think they have this psychic vision and can help these people. But they're just sending them on wild goose chases. And
Yeah. And it's like, is it good because they're giving them hope, or is it bad because they're leading them on?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to date, I mean, he went missing in 1988. To this date, there are no answers and no clues. There's nothing. And I can't believe if something happened to him at that party, that overall, and I don't know if I made this clear at the beginning. This was a small town. This was a few hundred people. Mm-hmm. I want to say it was less than 500 people in this community. If somebody knew, other people would know. You couldn't keep that secret, I don't think.
Well, what was his name that I did? And it was another rural, Brandon Strong, maybe? That sounds kind of rightish. The same thing, when you have it happen in a small community like that, first of all, it's crazy that you don't hear stuff, because even our city, which is big and always growing bigger, still is like a small city, mm-hmm. and that there's all those connections and word of mouth, and you run into people somehow, still places, even though it's a big city. But small towns, you're going to hear stuff, and somebody's going to say something when they're drunk down at the local bar.
Yes.
Which happens a lot, right? They're also the ones that get the most people helping search and do all that because they want to help.
And people are still helping. People are still getting signatures on this petition to reopen the case, to get a task force. She's had a lot of support, but it's just like he disappeared into thin air. So he went to a party and never came home, and I can't think of a worse nightmare.
And they haven't provided anything that makes it look like he ran away or anything like that. There's nothing in his background that's like that. And so it's all, like missing persons just are one of the worst things, because they leave a lot of victims behind, right?
They do.
And it's always dismal.
So my sources for this were Strangest Unsolved Mysteries from Each State.
Yeah.
By Reader's Digest.
I think I've looked at ones like that.
Alberta Leach's 35-year search for her son Randy in the Leavenworth County paper by Martin Augustine. Mother of Randy Leach pleading for renewed investigation into his disappearance in the Tonganoxie Mirror.
See, that's another big sentence title.
It is.
Pushing it. You're pushing it.
It's also still active on Facebook, because In Search of Randy Leach is the Facebook group. Bizarre events surrounding Leach case from the Lawrence Journal. And no, that's it. And Satanic Panic from Wikipedia. I'm sorry, because I copy and paste a lot, so I don't have to type, because I'm lazy and usually in a hurry. It's just the whole part behind the Lawrence Journal. It's world news, information, headlines, and events in Lawrence, Kansas. So yes, I'm going to come back to Satanic Panic. I'm going to come back to the guy and shoving people in barrels. There's so many
There was a recent kind of horror comedy, man, because it's probably called Satanic Panic. That was quite amusing because it was about that. But then it's like, it's really happening. Oh, wait, is it really happening? There's a bunch of stuff like that. And then there was one where Jerry O'Connell and Rebecca Romaine were in it together. That was kind of, because all of us Gen Xers have reached an age where this was a huge chunk of our lives, and now it's showing up in movies. Stranger Things is a vivid example.
I love Stranger
of
Things.
All of that, of Gen X bringing back their childhood, right? It's pretty funny how
that's another one I haven't watched the new season of yet.
I binged that shit in one day because I had a lot of work to do, and so I just sat down and did the work and watched it straight through. So I probably missed a bunch of shit though, but whatever.
So what are you going to talk about today?
Speaking of disappearances.
Yes.
See, I couldn't say that. I couldn't do the transition I actually wanted to do because I knew you still had to read your sources. So I'm going to talk about the disappearance of Susan Walsh because, as I told you, I always find there's a little extra flavor of interesting when it's a journalist that goes missing.
Yes.
Because I think it's a more dangerous job than we realize sometimes.
Yes.
All right. So on July 16th, this is the disappearance of Susan Walsh, 1996, the year I got married, in Nutley, New Jersey. 32-year-old freelance investigative journalist Susan Walsh dropped her son off at her ex-husband's apartment, below but connected to hers. So they lived in this old tenement building. They had divorced, but they were then, it was like, maybe it was more like a fourplex setup where they had the entry down to below. Mm-hmm. great for their kid, right? That they were trying to do this. They didn't have a lot of money. It wasn't a great place. But anyway, she dropped him off so she could run across the street to use a payphone there and make a call. She did not have a home phone. It came out in some articles that he did, but that he wouldn't let her call certain people on his phone. For example, if she was calling a man or something like that, it was a no.
There are reasons why they were divorced.
Yes. Okay. She was supposed to be gone about half an hour, she said, and had left her wallet and pager and everything at home. She left her medication there, so on and so forth. She never made the phone call. They actually were able to look, and they said at around this time, no outgoing phone calls occurred. No one saw her actually leave her apartment. She went down, she dropped him off, went back up to her place to probably get her, do whatever and run out.
Quarters.
And yeah, nobody saw her leave. Like, he didn't even see her leave, just his place he saw her leave. And her ex-husband was the one who reported her missing when she still hadn't come home later that same day. He was like, okay, you can't make phone calls for this long, and you didn't drive anywhere. Oddly, police found that the page for July had been ripped out of her calendar.
Huh.
Born February 18th, 1960, Susan Young worked as an exotic dancer to put herself... I typoed danger. Worked as an exotic danger to put herself through college, graduating in 1984. She did a lot of go-go and stuff like that, too.
I would like to be an exotic danger.
I am an exotic danger.
You are.
Own it, MD.
I am going to put that on a business card and be part of exotic danger.
She gained work writing technical pieces for engineering and business publications out of college, as well as writing stories for Screw magazine, which was described as a pornographic tabloid. I was like, that doesn't sound legit. She had recently enrolled in a master's degree program in English and writing, the same focus as her bachelor's. When she disappeared, she was supporting herself with exotic dancing and her freelance journalism career. She had recently had a piece published in the Village Voice about a Russian mafia strip club ring that was trafficking young girls. She was using her work in these clubs to get in deeper so that she could then write about it. She was uniquely qualified, of course, to cover these sorts of stories. She had been doing this sort of work for a long time. She had ins with various people. And she was actively involved with several other projects involving sex work in general. She'd been part of 3 documentaries, one called Stripped by Jill Morley, a friend of Susan's, which was about the sex industry. Jill Morley was also a dancer and involved in the sex industry, and that's how they met. She'd recorded her part in this 2 days before her disappearance. She was also involved with a German documentary about Russian immigrants becoming go-go dancers and a related BBC documentary. In addition, Susan was the primary researcher for the book Red Light, Inside the Sex Industry by James Ridgway and Sylvia Plaschy, Plachy. James Ridgway was kind of her boss, it sounded like. I mean, with the journal at the Village Voice, perhaps. She did more than just research for the book, providing them with some small pieces, written pieces to include, and photos and that sort of thing. She was a big part of it. Susan had also written an article about an underground vampire community in New York City, but the Village Voice declined to publish it, saying she had not been objective in her writing. She had become personally involved with the group in order to write the story, even dating one of the men who claimed to be a vampire. She became intrigued with the culture, thus blurring her objectivity. It was James Ridgway who had given her a tip about blood being stolen from area hospitals that led her to the story originally and to the whole community. Though her article on the Russian mafia sex trafficking received great feedback, when the Village Voice refused to publish her article about the vampire underground, Susan never submitted another article to them again. During the filming of Stripped, when Susan was interviewed, she mentioned that she had a stalker. It would later be reported to the New York Post in 2006 that the stalker had been an ex-boyfriend of hers named Billy Walker. One of Susan's other exes, who happened to be living with her at the time of her disappearance and was cleared as a suspect, would back up the story of Walker stalking her. He said that her ex-boyfriend Walker was a biker, cocaine addict, and had supposedly admitted to disposing of bodies for the mob. He also said Walker had been calling her constantly leading up to her disappearance, and that she had a recording of him threatening her. So I was like, but she didn't have a phone. So then I'm like, did she have a phone and she canceled it because he just kept calling? And that's why she was without one for a while? I don't know. Like, I know we had to jump through hoops to change phone stuff, but we were always trying to keep the same phone number, so maybe that's why. So I didn't know. I don't understand.
Or maybe
where he
she was
calling.
between phones, or maybe she didn't have money and didn't have a phone.
Right, and she might have canceled it temporarily. So I don't know, but I don't know. So I'm just like, could be, could not be, because I read a whole article that they were interviewing this boyfriend of hers, ex-boyfriend, whatever he was. He was currently living with her, but they described him as an ex, and I'm like, are you calling him an ex because, like, she's gone and therefore he's an ex? Or had they broken up and they were just still friendly? I don't know. No answers. Okay. But it was also in, I don't know, the Mirror or the Globe or something, something tabloidy.
Right.
And I'm like, so how much do I buy everything, at least the way they said it? I believe that this guy probably was stalking her because his name was mentioned by several people and he was a problem. But they also said that she had gotten involved with him again or was sleeping with him again and stuff, was what some people said, even though he was problematic for her. So it's all over the place. The building in which she was living was described as a crumbling tenement. So again, doesn't seem like there was much income. So it could have been spotty with the phone and all of that. In addition, the man living with her, Christian Peppo, said she had decided to blackmail mafia members associated with the club in which she was working so she could get them to take out Walker and take care of the problem. Again, I don't know if this is just some dude big talking because he's being interviewed by the press about his disappeared ex-girlfriend. The interview he gave was to the New York Post. That was it, though, which appears to be a tabloid. So, I can't, So I'm like, it comes up a lot. They write a lot about true crime stuff.
They do.
And so I look at, but anything I get from them, I'm also going to try and find elsewhere.
Yes.
And the Billy Walker stuff did come up out elsewhere from this boyfriend, but some of the details, it was a lot more detailed since this was a direct interview with him. So with a grain of salt, folks, I do think she was being stalked. I do think it was by the ex-boyfriend, and he was looked into by the police, and they did take that seriously. But I just don't know about all the details. Interestingly, the same article said that her ex-husband, Mark Walsh, whose brother was Joe Walsh of the Eagles. Yeah, I think they were half brothers or something, had not allowed forensic testing in his apartment. Her ex-husband was never really a suspect and had allowed police to search his apartment when she disappeared and everything. They had noted he was very cooperative, so they were surprised when his lawyer called and said he would no longer be helping with the case and they were not to do any testing in his apartment. Even after this change of heart, though, police still didn't feel he was a suspect, and they thought he was probably protecting the son because of all the publicity and the police coming in and out, and it was traumatic for him. So, I don't know. I feel like the police thinking that it's probably because they're going to look at somebody crosswise if they're doing something like that. And it also said that he wouldn't take like a lie detector or anything like that. But my thing is, the more I learn about lie detectors, the less I'm inclined to take a lie detector if it ever comes to it.
Right.
Because my husband failed too. This wasn't a court thing. He has a security clearance, and so you have to get it like, I forget, every other year or something. And he'd never before, and it was about something stupid, but it was all about the tester. So he got the same tester twice. The third tester came in, had been doing it a long time. The other person was newer and was very aggressive, wouldn't clarify things, which they have to do, by the way. When you're taking, that's how it works, because you're getting asked yes or no type questions. They will say, this counts, but this does not count. I'm going to ask you about this. This counts, this does not count. So if you've done this, no, that's not what we're after. Okay. And so it's supposed to make it easier. This guy changed his rules throughout the test on my husband. My husband will be like, wait, you said such and such. And he'd be like, well, no, and then he's like, what the fuck? So yeah, I don't trust him. I wouldn't take one either. No definite connections could be found between her disappearance and any of her journalistic pursuits, but she had been telling friends and her father that she feared the Russian mafia was after her. She said cars were following her around and even told a friend that she'd found out 2 contracts had been taken out on her. No further information was found on this after her disappearance, and it was unclear where she'd gotten this information, like who told you there's 2 contracts out on you. Mm-hmm. Her father said that the last time he talked to her, she was a wreck, saying someone was going to kill her. She'd had drug addiction issues around her college career, and some of her friends said they'd feared she was using drugs again. That's also why they thought she was back with Billy Walker. She had been sober for 11 years at the time of her disappearance. Specifically, she had started drinking again and also using Xanax, both meant to help her cope with her fear and anxiety concerning somebody being out to get her. She had been having health problems, including ulcers so bad she was hospitalized twice in 1 week, not long before her disappearance. Ooh. She was known to have bipolar disorder, and at least one friend mentioned she thought she'd quit taking her bipolar medication shortly before she disappeared. She also told some of her friends she had emphysema. She'd said in the documentary Strept that it was exotic dancing that had caused the ulcers and emphysema that had been very hard on her body. She also suffered a lot of chronic bronchitis from her time dancing in clubs. I'm thinking there's smoke.
Yeah.
When you're one of those dancers, there's just fucking smoke everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be like working in a casino.
Clouds of it.
So, makes sense.
Yeah.
That she was having these health issues. honestly, because she'd been doing it first. She did it through college, and then she did it again to help support her son and herself. So that's a lot of time spent in a room like that. Some did feel she was dealing with depression when she disappeared, and by the way, bipolar, that is manic depression, but she was in a low, basically, and that she may have attempted to commit suicide at some point before her disappearance as well. Ridgway said her wrists were bandaged at the book launch of Red Light, and that she'd admitted the wounds were self-inflicted, and he was concerned about her drug use and stuff, and she said, "Believe me, I know to get help if I need to. I know how to get help." And this was about a month before her disappearance. But they said it hadn't been her first attempt or self-harming or anything like that.
Okay.
Jill Morley, who had worked with Susan on Stripped, don't expect everybody to remember the names I gave out, tried to look into whether the Russian mafia might have had anything to do with Susan's disappearance. Interviewing dancers Walsh had worked with or interviewed, she kept pursuing it. So once again, like a story of a friend who's like, we're not just letting this rest. The dancers felt she'd been murdered for outing the mafia ring. There was a lot of talk within the clubs about that, but she didn't find anything concrete. When Susan Walsh's disappearance was reported on Unsolved Mysteries, Susan's friend Melissa Hines said she'd seen Susan a month after her disappearance getting into a strange man's car. She gave the license plate number to the police, and they spoke to the man. He looked at pictures provided by the police and agreed that she was who he'd been with. Other articles said that he was the driver in the vehicle they got into that recognized her, so I'm not sure, again, which one it is. Hines thought Susan was in hiding to protect her family from the mafia. If she disappeared, they wouldn't go after her son. Though I think her reporting that on a national TV show was a strange violation of, friendship if she's hiding out from the mafia, so go after her family now. That was weird to me. Don't say that on a TV show then. Hello. Police theorized that she'd run away to start a new life, but her family has maintained, including her ex-husband, that she never would have abandoned her son. And her father and her husband have been very outspoken about it, but so have her friends. No, she would not abandon her son. And we hear that a lot when, a mom disappears. It's she wouldn't leave her family. And I'm sure there are some circumstances where they would, but in these cases, there weren't problems. There weren't stresses with the child, that sort of thing. Her half-brother spoke to her not long before her disappearance and said she was distracted and disjointed on the phone, and that she had mentioned she was working with a government agency on something. He's the only one who mentioned anything about that. And he didn't remember which one it was. He wasn't able to get more information, and he ended up actually suing the Nutley police for her files several years after her disappearance so he could look into it. Their father had tried hiring a private investigator at one point, and that PI had handed over information to the police that they found. Sadly, her father did die not knowing what had happened to her, so her brother is very much fighting the fight still. In 1998, Dr. Catherine Ramsland wrote a book about the same underground vampire culture in New York and included Susan's disappearance in the book, which was titled Piercing the Darkness, Undercover with Vampires in America Today. While plenty of people have theorized the vampires dispatched with Susan, Ramsland didn't believe that was so. I don't either. We know people who are in these types of groups. I knew somebody as a teenager who was in this. They're not actually hurting anybody. They just freak people out. Yeah. And here's the thing. And sometimes they love that they freak people out and they build that up. Of course, they're vampires. These groups typically don't harm people. They get their blood in safer ways. These ones were stealing it from a hospital, which isn't great if somebody needs blood.
Right.
The one, what I've seen, I've watched a documentary in the past. We have a friend who's in a documentary in the past, I believe. They often will have willing donors.
Yes.
So those people will let them get blood from them and they will drink it. They're not murdering people.
Are they called swans?
Oh, I forget. Yeah, it's something like that.
They're called something. The voluntary, yeah.
They did, however, say, okay, it is possible that somebody on the periphery of the group who was troubled might have used the group to connect with somebody and victimize that person. And she was very intrigued by it all, so on and so forth.
Right.
So somebody probably could have lured her somewhere and harmed her. So it's an individual, and it might have, I just don't think it was the vampire community in capital letters or whatever. Susan Walsh was white, blonde, and had blue eyes. She was 5'6" and weighed 110 pounds at the time of her disappearance. She was known to have a strong Jersey accent and a scar in her right wrist. I imagine since she had the self-harm before, that she might have more scars on her wrists. She would be 62 years old now. If anyone has information about her case, they can call the Nutley Police Department at 973-284-4940. Though foul play is suspected, no signs of foul play were found. And I did use Wikipedia on this one. The Charlie Project. Ranker article was Journalist Susan Walsh's Disappearance Linked to Drugs, the Mob, or an Underground Vampire Club by Patrick Thornton. New York Post article, 96 Stripper Vanish Clue by Brad Hamilton. I put that in there just because A, I was offended that he titled it with Stripper Vanished, and B, that's not even a sentence. 96 Stripper Vanish Clue was the name of that article. Okay, Brad. Disappeared blog, North Jersey article, disappearance of Nutley mom journalist and dancer. See, isn't that a much nicer way to put it?
Yeah.
Still a mystery 24 years later by Caitlin Kanzler.
So we've got two people here who
disappeared without like a
trace.
Yeah.
And it's both, you have to wonder, how could it happen?
Yeah, I mean, the ex-husband said that payphone was about a block away. So somewhere in that block, she disappeared. Didn't take her stuff with her.
Well, why would you? If it's a crumbling tenement, that would probably indicate it's not in the best neighborhood. It might not be in the worst neighborhood,
right,
but it might be a deteriorating neighborhood. So no, you just take your change that you need to make the phone call.
And you go. You're not going to walk with a wallet.
No. Did he know who she was calling?
No, there was no information on that. So some of it seemed to be they thought it was like a job related thing. But then like that other article, I think the thing is, I think that information about the husband keeping stuff from her, the phone, and having prices for using the phone and stuff like that, which, okay, it seems like they're trying to get along. We all know that there's still shit that happens like that in that situation.
Yep.
It's never pretty, right? So it was also implied that the ex-husband had bought a new pan and that pan was missing later. And so they thought maybe he killed her with that and hidden her body before he went. And I'm like, so what did he do with his son?
Yeah. How old was the son?
Like, I think he was like 11. So he's not going to he's not 2. He's not going to ignore what's happening. So
was there any recent interview with him?
He just a sentence here or there. Like, there wasn't anybody who did a dedicated interview with him. I just think that other guy was more interesting because he was, he definitely didn't think that she would have just left her son. He was helping for the beginning, and all of that until he clammed up for whatever reason. But he'd already let them in to search everything.
But when you think about it, if you're, you've divorced your spouse and they're living in the apartment next door and they go missing. And you call the police and report them missing, and they come and you let them search your house, and you haven't done anything wrong. But then you're talking to whoever. You're talking, maybe you have a friend who's a paralegal or a lawyer, and they go, and
they're like, listen,
holy fucking shit, don't talk to anybody without a lawyer present.
Yeah.
And ever again.
I did interestingly find, but I couldn't find anything else to back it up, so I wasn't sure how true it was. And again, I feel like it was a tabloidy publication. It was years later, and they said, it was at the same time that other article said there had been a surge. The police were looking into it all again with new evidence. That article implied that they were looking in like a body of water or something like that near the ex-husband's like parents' property or something. But then nothing came of it. So it's like they, at that point, started considering the ex-husband, but then I did not find anywhere else that they had announced he was a suspect or a person of interest even. I mean, they really had him taken, and the ex that was living with her also was not a suspect after they looked into him.
Which is bizarre. You would think if there was any reason that that's who they would look at first.
Right. So he must have had a good alibi. Yeah. Because he doesn't appear to have been there when she left, or he would have seen her leaving. Right. So.
Wow.
Just boop, gone. And you think if you were hiding, like, eventually you would come out, or you would try and send something to your son.
Yeah, contact your son.
Yeah. So.
That's just bizarre. But they both are. Both cases are just people disappearing without a trace.
Yeah. It's weird.
It is.
A lot of people disappear without a trace. We've learned that.
We have.
It's amazing. And I'm like, but if I wanted to disappear, it would probably be hard to have no trace and to start a new life. Like, I think about that sometimes, not because I'm trying to do that, but I'm like, I try to think through the steps when I'm reading a story or something about it. And I'm like, you would have to have a job. And I've never had a job not be like, except one that paid me under the table. So you'd have to find that though. Say, I don't need to see your ID. That's all we have to send that paperwork in. I've been HR. I know how that works. So you would only be able to work at shitty places that didn't have requirements. Mm-hmm. And then you would probably get money stolen from you by them eventually and have to go find another shitty place. Because that's what we see over and over too, is somebody who's done that kind of life. Yeah. This employer's like, well, what are you going to do about it? If I suddenly start taking out X amount of money because you owe me for this or whatever. So it would be hard to do. And she was not like she was a noob investigative journalist, right?
True.
She had 2 pieces published and then that last one turned down.
Although she did have them published in big places.
Yeah. And I also saw that they said that she had and there was an initial article that she had published about the vampire community. It was that she then tried to do another one after she was more involved with them, and that's the one she wasn't objective about. So I imagine she had published one about the blood disappearing.
So I wonder, when it said she wasn't objective about it, was she favoring them too much or disfavoring them? I know you said she dated one of them.
Yeah, Ridgway, the way he put it was, it sounded like she was kind of buying in.
Okay.
And so that was reflected in the article, and that's what they weren't comfortable with, was that she was fully now saying, yes, I believe that they get this power from drinking blood and stuff like that. And so she had gotten so sucked in that she was basically reporting that versus this outside objective look at them.
So was she still part of that community when she disappeared?
I believe so, but she wasn't writing more about it because nothing had been done about it. And so she wasn't doing anything further with that. And I think she was still working on, because that had become her thing, right? Was the things happening in strip clubs and
I was going to say, so she's still involved in 2
in the mafia
communities.
Stuff. Yeah.
So she's involved with the vampire community. She's involved with the dancing, exotic dance community and the Russian mafia. She was living a dangerous life, but...
She was. And that's the thing is, like, a lot of the times, because of one of the true crime things I listen to where she gets pissed because she's Italian every time somebody's like, it was the mafia. Because they get blamed for everything. I've had other ones where I'm like, and they said it might be the mafia, but I could find nothing saying that would be so. In this one, this really does sound like it might have been the mafia. She had outed them publicly. She was still investigating them. And it was Russian, not Italian. But yeah, she was still investigating them. And so that... I feel that one would be the stronger reason. I just don't think the vampire community would have taken her out.
No,
I don't think they were dangerous. So, yeah. That one does seem like it could very much be so. Or that she disappeared to spare her family. But if so, would they have not gone after her son after her friend was like, I think.
Yeah.
On Unsolved Mysteries.
Or gone after her friend. Or gone after the filmmaker, or
something.
There's just so many. Again, with both of these, there's so many questions and just fucking nothing.
No answers, frustrating. And once again, a parent who died before ever knowing what happened. Yep. And I just that's always a sad footnote.
Yes,
they'll never know unless you believe in the afterlife. They know, and then that's great.
Right.
So there you go. But. Yeah, all right. On that gloomy note.
I was going to say, that's a cheerful way to end. All right, then.
All right. We're going to go ahead and go, you guys.
But don't forget, you can buy us a book.
At buymeacoffee.com/MM Always appreciated. Because there's overhead.
So there is. So thank you for listening to us, and we'll be back next week. God knows what the topics will be.
We'll try not to do a disappearance next week since we've cornered that market recently.
We've done some disappearances, so Yes, we'll try to do something different.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem.
Find us on Facebook and Instagram or at our website, mysteriesmonstersmayhem.com.
Please like, rate, and review, follow, and share wherever your favorite podcasts are downloaded.
Thank you for listening and supporting our podcast. We'll be back next week with more shenanigans.